Hello and welcome to Scran, the podcast passionate about the Scottish food and drink scene. I'm your host, Rosalind, and on this episode we're looking to the Middle East and its oldest microbrewery, Taybeh. Located in the West Bank, water only runs once a week and attacks are a constant threat. Who runs Taybeh says they are defying the odds and continuing to operate. Now Taybeh have joined forces with Glasgow-founded B-Corp Brewgooder to produce a new lager, Sun and Stone, as export restrictions make it virtually impossible to ship abroad. Madise joined me to discuss the challenges her family brewery has been faced in recent times, as well as the partnership with Brewgooder. I also speak to James Hughes, co-founder of Brewgooder, who tells me more about their company, who are trying to do some good in the world, and how the partnership came about. It's almost the weekend, so we would like to talk to you about your recent project with Brewgooder. But just to go right back to the start, if anyone hasn't read the recent news about your beer that's launched in the UK, can you just let us know a little bit about your brewery? Because it's the oldest microbrewery in the Middle East, is that right?
Correct. My family, my father, uncle, and grandfather started the first microbrewery in the Middle East in 1994. And I basically grew up in the brewery since I was 9 years old. And I now help manage the business and brew the beer as well.
So you've grown up around brewing and everything. So it's always been a bit of a passion for you?
Yeah, I grew up in the brewery. It's now it's not my second home. It's my home now because I spend all my time there. But I just grew to love the business and see how my father and uncle and grandfather invested so much effort and blood and sweat and tears into the business to make it a success. And I just love beer and I love brewing and I love sharing that with people who love beer. And I enjoy it. I'm doing something I love and I'm not doing the same thing every single day for 8 hours. I'm not on my computer every single day. I'm in every aspect of the business, whether it's visiting customers or exporting or importing or brewing, packaging. Or just giving tours and talking to people that come and visit us. I just love it.
And yeah, so anyone's thinking, Middle East brewery, that doesn't really, people have a perception of not really being able to drink and things. Could you just sort of talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So even till now, after 31 years, a lot of people are still surprised that, there's the first microbrewer in the Middle East, or that we drink alcohol, or that there's a female brewer. I think, in my opinion, Palestine is one of the most liberal Arab countries. We are just as any other country in the world, but a much smaller market. You do have Muslims who don't drink. You have Muslims who do drink. You have Christians. You have expats. You have tourists. So it's a smaller market, limited market, but we all respect each other. I mean, whether you drink or you don't drink, we have that sense of cultural respect.
And so obviously being based in Palestine just now is, it's obviously in the news, everyone knows the war that's going on there. How are you guys sort of functioning as a business? Obviously over your time being involved, you'll have seen, things change and develop. How are things? I mean, it seems like a daft question, but how are things?
Not too good, actually. They're the worst that has ever happened in 76 years. Before this war and before these past 22 months, we are still under occupation. And being under occupation means you don't have your own roads, you don't have your own borders, you don't have your own water, you don't have control over anything. Everything that needs to go in and out of the country has to go through Israel. I guess these past 22 months, things have deteriorated greatly. Business has gone down significantly. Beer back home is a luxury product. People are not working, they're not getting paid. It's a difficult time for people financially. They're saving that money for, their kids, for their essentials, for their basic daily lives. And so to buy beer, at the moment, it's not a significant, important product. So, I mean, I can talk for hours of the difficulties and challenges. These past 22 months, the Israelis have made it very difficult for Palestinians to live a normal life. I don't know what normal is anymore. I'm in Scotland, and I'm like, I've traveled and I've lived abroad, but I'm still fascinated how everyone is just moving so freely and so easily and planning like in 2 years or next month or next week what they're doing. Whereas us Palestinians, even as a business, it's very hard to plan what we're going to do tomorrow, because you never know if the roads are going to be open or the Israelis are going to close the gates on us and not allow us to move around. We don't know if we're going to have enough water to brew beer, because the Israeli settlers have attacked our main water resource for the town and for 14 other towns. And so, it's a very difficult time. I'm not saying that it's worse than what the people in Gaza are going through, but we all Palestinians are going through it in different ways.
And it was because of everything that's going on that's sort of introduced you guys to Brewgooder. So do you want to tell us a bit about how the collaboration came about?
Yeah. So James, the co-founder of Brewgooder, contacted me, I think at the beginning of the year, and he had read an article about the brewery and about the business and the family. And he was like, this is a great opportunity to get to make a collaborated brew and to get it in the market and to get the name Taybeh, our product, our brewery out there. And my brother and I really pushed on this initiative and this collaboration. It's our first ever, and it's something new. And we've had a lot of fun working with James and the team. And I think it worked out pretty well and smoothly, just because Brewgooder has values that aligns with our values as a brewery as well, not just a passion for making great beer and sharing it with people, but also giving back to the community and doing something good. So there is value in what we are brewing and promoting.
And the beer is Sun and Stone, is that right?
Sun and Stone, yes. We named it Sun and Stone after the beautiful sun and weather in Palestine and the limestones in Palestine as well. And so it's very personal.
I promise you it was sunny here until about 2 days ago.
I was telling James the day before yesterday, I'm like, wow, the weather's really nice. I'm walking around and it's beautiful and sunny. And then the next morning I wake up and it's raining and I'm like, oh man, I jinxed it. But it's not too bad actually so far.
It should be all right. It's been pretty good. But yeah, so anyway, back to your beer. So it's a lager. So can people expect it to be obviously quite light, fizzy?
It's a very crisp, very enjoyable light lager. Not too malty, not too hoppy. It's made with 100% British malt and German hops. So it has a touch of everything, and it's made with a lot of love and passion.
And for anyone that's wanting to try it, because it does sound delicious, when and where can they get some?
So it was launched yesterday online through Brewgooder's website. So people can now buy online, and it'll be in the store in 1,600 stores of the co-op stores September 10th for the next 9 weeks. Yeah, so people need to rush and get their beers before it runs out, because already we're getting a lot of really great responses and people are enjoying the beers and promoting and motivating us and encouraging us. So we've got some really good responses.
Yeah, no, it's been great, and it does look lovely.
I hope you get to try it.
Yeah, well, I'll need to speak to James, because it's it looks really nice. So, when it comes to the launch of this, what are your sort of hopes for the achievement of the launch?
Not just sharing the beer with everyone who loves beer, and not making it just accessible for people to go and find it everywhere. It's also a message, and the beer itself is not just great beer, but it's also a story, and it's an image of Palestine and what we represent, and Brewgooder and what they represent as well. People, like you said, are still surprised that, or don't know that Palestinians drink beer, or there's a brewery. So when they see this collaboration, they want to know more about the business, about Palestine, about Palestinians, and hopefully get to share it with their loved ones and enjoy it.
And do you think off the back of this, obviously the reception's been great, is there capacity for you to do future collaborations?
We would love to. I hope this is the first of many collaborations. It's been a very nice experience, and hopefully everything sells out very quickly. And we will hopefully, if we can, we'll brew more. Absolutely.
And have you been to Scotland before?
No, this is my first time.
So you're enjoying it apart from the rain?
I am. It's lovely. It's so cozy. I don't feel like a tourist, although sometimes I do look at with my backpack and walking around very looking around at all the buildings very slowly. So, but I'm trying to wear my backpack and run quickly, like the locals. But yeah, it's been a lovely experience. I'm enjoying it a lot.
And have you tried any beers here that you've thought, oh, that's
I
nice?
have. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but every time I go out, I'm trying to try the local craft beer everywhere I go. So it's been fun trying all the beers.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't ask you this because it's a rival brand, but have you had some tenants?
What is it? Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I heard it's your beer that you grow up with when you were a kid. It's mass produced. It's everywhere. It's tenants. So I actually went to the brewery, just walking around, and I'm like, oh, there's a brewery here. So I just went in and saw the museum and had their beers as well. So that was nice.
Of course, yeah. I was going to say their beer is brilliant, and it is such a good thing they're doing just across the board with all these really good collaborations. So just to quickly go back to your beer, out in September, unless you bought online, we're probably heading into hopefully the tail end of like a summer. We get some nice weather in September. What would you eat with the beer? Would you pair it with any particular food?
With Sun and Stone, I would pair it with, if you want to go Middle Eastern, maybe some tabbouleh, some chicken shawarma. If you want to go something more Western, I would go with a pizza, maybe some lamb kebabs. I just hope that, this collaboration creates awareness and shows people a different side of Palestine than what they see on the news. In spite of what we're going through as Palestinians for the past 22 months, which has been very heartbreaking and depressing, and you, as a Palestinian, I feel very depressed all the time because of what we're seeing and hearing on the news. But that doesn't mean we don't stop. We continue to build, we continue to invest, we continue to grow and plan for a peaceful future and continue to get the name Palestine out there.
Well, I think that's a pretty strong ending. There's not much I can say to add to that. But thank you very much for your time, and I am looking forward to trying it if I can get my hands on some.
You're welcome. I hope you do. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much. So we are here to chat beer and one of your most recent launches. But for anyone that hasn't heard of you guys or read about things that we've written in the past, could you just give us a little sort of potted history of Brewgooder, like what you guys are, what you do, how you started out?
Yeah, for sure. So we are, I guess, first and foremost, we're a beer brand based in Glasgow. Been running since 2016. We've got an office in Kenning Park. We are a contract brewer, so we don't actually have a brewery. We use spare capacity of different brewery sites all over the UK now. And I guess our founding reason and why and purpose, everything is probably quite different to more beer brands than not. We started really as a consequence of a personal experience that my co-founder Alan had in Nepal. He spent some time there, came home and had this realization that he wanted to ultimately dedicate his life and his career to making the world a better place than the one he found. And decided that beer actually was a really powerful vehicle to do that. As much as he could have gone into charity work, and he did do that for a period of time, he became obsessed about this idea of how companies actually can make, in many times, just as much, if not more, impact, positive difference as the charities themselves. And beer being this, I guess, certainly in Scotland, omnipresent product. It's at the heart of communities, it's at the heart of celebrations and commiserations. It just caught our imagination as to how that could, that power and that position it had could be channeled in a really positive way. So ever since then, we've kind of been dedicated to brewing beer, and really we have obviously proceeds that come from every single pint, every can, every keg sold, that go into our foundation, the Brewgooder Foundation, and then that is then distributed to charities and initiatives, both on a global and a local level, that are basically helping to reduce barriers and effectively make the world a fairer place for all.
And so a lot of that is to do with clean water, isn't it? The foundation.
Yeah, so clean water, again, links back to that sort of origin story. And Alan in Nepal, he picked up a waterborne illness, and upon arriving home sort of decided that clean water and sanitation, access to those things were so integral. That was such a key barrier and pillar that we wanted to sort of dedicate our efforts towards. And that remains to this day kind of one of the areas that we fund, more than anything else on that macro level. But we've also moved into other areas, whether it's inclusion or we work with the likes of Refugee in Glasgow in terms of the amazing work they're doing right here on our doorstep. So there's been a bit of a proliferation, if you like, in terms of what we support, but it all kind of comes under this banner of, I guess, reducing inequalities, particularly for marginalised groups. And
what is your role within the company?
So I guess I'm now considered sort of a co-founder. I joined Alan in 2016, really initially just helping him as much as I could, with the limited experience that I had as a 25-year-old. I then stepped away momentarily. I went was offered the brand job at Tennent's, which obviously within Scotland, if you're going to do beer, that's a fairly good brand to be working on. But within, I guess, as little as 3 months of being away from Brewgooder, I had this I guess, my own epiphany, if you like, and my own realization that actually the work we were doing there was what I wanted to do more of. And actually the benefit of stepping away allowed me to almost look back and see all the things that I think we could have been doing better and improve on. So I guess formally we started a new company at that moment in time, versus the old sort of entity, and that was around just before lockdown actually. And ever since, Alan and I have almost just been going on this journey together. So co-founder / sort of I guess a brand. I gravitate really towards the brand and the consumer facing side of our business.
And so your most recent launch, which has just been earlier this month, is with, I'm going to say this wrong and I do apologise, Taybeh Brewery in Palestine. So you've obviously teamed up with their brewer there, who's Madis. How did you come to know about them?
Yeah, so we came across, and don't worry about the pronunciation, that was something that I had to grasp as well. So it's Taybeh, which I don't know if Madis has explained, but it's basically a word used almost at a moment of satisfaction. So if like someone says, "Oh, how is your food or how is your beer?" you would say Taybeh, which basically means great. So we came across their story 2 years ago now, approaching 2 years ago now. There was a spotlight on them done by The Guardian that really kind of told their story following the escalation in the conflict. They're a brewery, obviously, that's been running since '94. They were the first ever microbrewery within the Middle East as a whole. They've faced just about every single obstacle and barrier you could ever think of. We have the luxury of now being able to joke with Madis around our own challenges in running a beer brand in the UK and in Scotland. Obviously, there's various challenges, whether it's governmental or whatever. And obviously they are immediately put into perspective when you speak to Medice and you hear what they've gone through just to sustain themselves as a family business. And this article kind of just went into how everything had just ramped up to levels that they've really not seen before, in terms of the challenges daily. Whether it's water supply to the brewery through to checkpoints, new checkpoints being set up, new military gates, new barriers. They're really at a stage now where they can't really ever plan a day in their business operations. There's always something that comes out of the blue, and I guess we were just super inspired by the fact that they were continuing to try, the resilience that existed within them as a team and as a family. And, one of the most prevalent, activities within the beer industry is collaboration. In our sort of 10-year history, we've collaborated with probably the best part of 40, 50 breweries, around the world. And obviously as part of that process, you arrive at a recipe, mutually, sometimes obviously done over conversations like this. And then at some point in time, you obviously decide which brewery of the two is actually going to brew the beer, physically. And I guess we saw that, noting all of the logistical obstacles and the restrictions that were being imposed on them in terms of, Israeli controlled ports, meaning their beer quite literally can't leave the country anymore. We actually thought, well, this is actually a really neat way to almost circumvent all of that. If the beer is brewed here, then all of those restrictions cannot be applied. But we can still obviously generate all the benefit that comes from a collaboration in terms of the awareness of Taybeh, the opportunity to tell their story and get their brand out there, on top of course, all the proceeds and the sort of vital source of income that this will generate directly for them, during obviously what's a super difficult time. Yeah.
So it's not for profit for you guys, isn't it, this beer?
Correct, yeah. So we're brewing the beer at zero margin, effectively.
And it's a lager called Sun and Stone. So is that, obviously you say you collaborated on the recipe, is that something that they wanted definitively, or did it sort of come through discussion, or?
Yeah, I think Taybeh, traditionally their beers are probably more sophisticated in style and approach than necessarily a lager. Their lead product is a product called Golden, which is probably about as close to a lager as they offer. But the sort of intent on the lager came from us, I think, in recognizing that it still makes up, the biggest part of the beer market, despite obviously the rise of craft and all these different styles. Lager is by far, on a volume and a revenue point of view, the biggest space. And really, when we were approaching this, yes, it's absolutely about the beer. Like, we wanted to make a great beer, but ultimately it's much more than that. It's about creating a mechanic and an initiative, basically, that as many people as possible can participate in. And so we wanted to just basically go with a liquid that we felt was most accessible and could be enjoyed by the most number of people. And that's what sort of brought us to where we landed.
And what about the can as well? We sort of touched a little bit on the illustration. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that illustration work was done by a Levantine-based artist called Khoury Flayen. So really, I guess our desire, obviously being a brand based in Glasgow, was to make sure this was as authentic an execution as possible across the board. And that involves sort of every touch point that we can involve Palestinian artists, Palestinian creatives and filmmakers, so the video, for instance, that we've released, we managed to work with an incredible videographer based out there, who captured all of that. And the artwork was the same. We could have designed it like any other beer we've designed here, but we decided to sort of, if we could, find someone that could provide it that sort of authentic sense of tradition and Palestinian touch, if you like.
And how's it been received? How's it going?
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. Particularly the reaction in Scotland has been so strong. and quite a proud moment as well for us. I think the nervousness in putting ourselves forward to do this for Taybeh was, can we do it justice? I think how the people, particularly in our home city and our home country, ultimately have reacted is just been so positive, and we're super appreciative of that. But all across the UK as well, and even internationally, I think we've had requests from now 13 or 14 different countries internationally wanting to get their hands on this product, which is amazing. And I think it's a very strange initiative emotionally. On the one hand, you really want to celebrate all of that sort of initial success and reaction, and particularly on behalf of Taybeh, providing them the platform that it has. That's exactly why we set out to do it in the first place. But I'm, personally, and I know the team are as well, just constantly sort of checking yourself in terms of, obviously the situation is extremely bleak. Even in the 12 months that we've been in contact with Taybeh, their own situation has deteriorated massively. They went from a position of, this is an escalation, but we've had escalations in our past and we know that it will die down, to now saying this is without question the worst it's ever been in their lifetimes. So it's a very sort of bittersweet situation as a consequence of those two things come together.
And from a Brewgooder point of view, do you guys sort of hope to be a sort of leading light in terms of, like, there's a lot of corporate businesses in Scotland, especially around about drink and in general, like you guys are doing good. Do you sort of want to sort of, forge a path to maybe have, other bigger businesses might look at you guys and be like, we should be doing something similar?
I think for me, that's one of the best things this could ever do. Like, I think we're well, we have enough self-awareness to realize that this is just one initiative that, yes, will hopefully be the success that we think it can be, but it's not going to touch the sides in terms of what is needing to be done here. And actually, if this initiative can just inspire, one more company, one more person, one more platform or organization of influence to look inward and say, actually, via what we do as a business or what I do personally in terms of a hobby or a passion, that can be directed towards supporting and standing with the people of Palestine during, for me, what will be a pivotal moment in history. We'll look back on this time, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, and think, how could I have acted differently? And I think, I know Alan and I were in a position where, yes, there's risks to this. I'm sure there's people that will take a sort of controversial angle on it. But could we legitimately, look at what we've tried to build over the last 10 years and having not done something, continue to operate in that way? Like, I just don't believe we could have done. So I don't want anyone else to have that same sense of regret. I think there's a real opportunity here. There's so many people, so much activity going on that almost increasingly, people are now in the minority almost if you're not taking action at this point in time. And I really would hope this could inspire someone a wee bit bigger and more influential than us to make a real positive difference.
Well, fingers crossed. So all that aside, do you have anything coming up in this sort of half of the year that you are working on? Any future plans? Do you think this will, obviously the demand is so big, I'm assuming you'll be focusing on this for quite a long time.
Yeah, I think we want to make the most of this, as possible, as much as there is an interest in supporting it and people thinking that, this sort of activity within our industry ultimately is valuable in contributing to the sort of wider cause and the situation. We'll look to continue to do it. I think one of the angles that's quite interesting is, obviously, it is a Mediterranean lager, strictly speaking, in terms of its recipe, but also the fact that Palestine is on the Mediterranean. Not many people are aware of that. And that's a consequence of largely education and also marketing. There are a lot of large-scale Mediterranean lagers that were sold day in, day out, from countries across Europe, for instance. Why can't one of the world's biggest Mediterranean lagers be from the country of Palestine, and one that ultimately continues to support the people, through on the ground work, and one day potentially even brewed there. I think that really becomes the full circle moment for this, is that we've done this initiative to circumvent restrictions currently imposed. It would be amazing if this shone such a powerful spotlight on that situation, to the extent that one day, Sun and Stone Lager actually comes from Taybeh Brewery and the country itself.
I don't think there's anything else I can add to that. So thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to hopefully try some soon.
Nice one. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.